Let's talk about what happens when you eat beets, specifically how one of their key compounds can rapidly and measurably enhance leg strength. This isn't hype or speculation. This is grounded in the biology of blood flow, neuromuscular activation, and muscle energy systems. Beets are rich in a molecule called dietary nitrate. When you consume beets, whether in juice, cooked, or raw, these nitrates are absorbed through the gut and enter the bloodstream. But the real action begins when they reach your saliva. Bacteria in your mouth convert these nitrates into nitrites. Then, once swallowed, those nitrites are further converted into nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is one of the most critical molecules for vascular function. It causes vasodilation. That is, it signals the smooth muscle in your blood vessels to relax. The result? The diameter of your blood vessels increases, allowing for greater blood flow. And here's the key. That increased blood flow targets skeletal muscle tissue, especially in the lower extremities where circulation tends to slow down due to gravity and age, vascular stiffness. Why does that matter for leg strength? Because muscles don't operate in isolation. They rely on oxygen, nutrients like glucose and amino acids, and efficient removal of waste products like carbon dioxide and lactate. When you increase blood flow, you optimize all of those systems. Oxygen arrives faster, glucose arrives faster, and just as importantly, metabolic waste is cleared more efficiently, reducing fatigue. This means your muscle fibers can contract more powerfully and for longer durations. The lower body contains some of the largest muscles in the human body: quads, hamstrings, glutes, and calves. These are also high-demand muscles, especially when it comes to basic actions like standing, walking, squatting, and maintaining balance. With increased nitric oxide production from dietary nitrates, these muscles receive a surge in circulation within a matter of hours. But there's more. Nitric oxide doesn't just support blood flow, it also plays a direct role in signaling within the neuromuscular junction, the interface between motor neurons and muscle fibers. This means it can enhance the speed and strength of the signal that tells your muscles to contract. That's especially relevant for fast twitch fibers, which are critical for sudden, powerful movements like getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, or preventing a fall. The effects can be felt within 6 to 12 hours of ingestion. That's because the biochemical conversion from nitrate to nitric oxide is rapid, and the impact on vascular tone is almost immediate. This isn't something that takes weeks of supplementation. A single serving of beetroot juice or whole beets can start improving circulation and muscle performance the same day. And to be clear, this isn't only relevant for athletes. Older adults, individuals recovering from injury, or anyone experiencing muscular fatigue or weakness in the legs can benefit from this mechanism. It's simple, accessible, and backed by well-established vascular physiology. Beets don't just feed your muscles, they activate a powerful biological cascade that restores the very foundation of strength, blood flow. Let's drill down into one of the most important mechanisms behind rapid leg strength recovery, something that happens when you consume a very specific type of nutrient found in one simple food: beets. Now, most people think of muscle strength as purely a function of exercise or protein intake, but that leaves out one of the most critical variables: blood flow. Without proper circulation to your leg muscles, you don't get oxygen, you don't get fuel, and your neural signals to those muscles start to slow down. But when you consume beets, something very specific happens at the molecular level that changes all of that, often within a matter of hours. Beets contain a high level of dietary nitrates. These are not the same as the synthetic nitrates found in processed meats. These are naturally occurring nitrates that your body actually uses to produce a powerful signaling molecule called nitric oxide. Here's how that process works. When you eat beets, the nitrates are absorbed through your digestive system and enter the bloodstream. But interestingly, your saliva plays a major role. The bacteria in your mouth convert those nitrates into nitrites. When you swallow those nitrites, they are further converted into nitric oxide inside your body, particularly in low oxygen conditions like those found in working muscles. Nitric oxide then acts as a vasodilator. That means it relaxes the inner muscles of your blood vessels, causing them to widen. This increases the diameter of your blood vessels, allowing more blood to flow through them. In real terms, that means more oxygen is delivered to your leg muscles, more glucose, more amino acids, and crucially, faster removal of waste products like carbon dioxide and lactic acid. And that's not just about feeling better, that directly impacts the strength and endurance of your muscle fibers, especially the ones responsible for fast, powerful contractions. This is especially important in the lower limbs because they often suffer from reduced circulation, whether due to aging, sedentary behavior, or previous injury. What nitric oxide does is restore that circulation rapidly and measurably. It's not uncommon to see strength improvements within 6 to 12 hours after beet consumption because the vascular system responds so quickly to nitric oxide. Another layer to this is the neuromuscular impact. Nitric oxide doesn't just affect blood flow, it also improves communication between nerves and muscles. The synapse, the junction where your motor neurons tell your muscles to contract, operates more efficiently in the presence of nitric oxide. That means faster reaction times, smoother contractions, and more stability in movements like standing, walking, or stepping up. So when you consume beets, you're not just eating a root vegetable, you're activating a biochemical pathway that directly increases blood flow, improves oxygen delivery, enhances neuromuscular transmission, and supports the very systems that make your legs feel strong, stable, and ready to move. And what's most striking is how quickly this happens, within hours, not weeks. It's one of the most effective, natural ways to restore leg strength that we have in the nutritional toolkit. Now let's zero in on a very specific category of muscle fibers, type 2 fast twitch fibers, and why they play such a critical role in leg strength, especially when we're talking about rapid improvements following something like beet consumption. These fibers are built for speed and power. They're responsible for the explosive actions your legs perform every day. Things like standing up quickly, climbing stairs, catching yourself from falling, or generating force during a workout. But here's where it gets really interesting. These fibers are also highly responsive to changes in blood flow and nitric oxide availability. When you consume beets, the dietary nitrates get converted through a biochemical pathway into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide, in turn, increases blood vessel diameter and enhances the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to your muscle tissue. But not all muscle fibers benefit equally. Type 2 fibers, which are usually recruited during high-intensity, short-duration efforts, have a higher threshold for activation. They're not always online during low effort movements, but when nitric oxide levels rise, it improves the environment these fibers operate in, making them easier to recruit, faster to fire, and more powerful in their contractions. You've probably heard that as we age, we tend to lose strength more quickly in our legs than in other parts of the body. A big reason for that is the decline in type 2 fiber function. These fibers atrophy faster with disuse, and they're harder to re-engage once that decline sets in. But the presence of nitric oxide can significantly enhance their activation by improving both vascular support and neuromuscular transmission. The motor neurons that connect to fast twitch fibers rely on rapid, high-frequency signals to generate power. Nitric oxide supports that communication, effectively lowering the threshold needed to engage those fibers. This is not just theoretical. Imaging studies and muscle biopsy research have shown that with increased nitric oxide availability, there is a measurable uptick in the contractile efficiency of fast-twitch muscle fibers. That means the same muscle can generate more force with less effort and do it faster. This is why some people report feeling stronger or more stable just hours after consuming a high nitrate food like beets. What's also worth noting is that type 2 fibers are essential for movement precision. When you're navigating uneven terrain, stepping off a curb, or reacting to a slip, it's the fast twitch fibers that come online to correct your balance. Improved nitric oxide signaling doesn't just make them stronger, it makes them smarter, more responsive to neural input, and better coordinated with the central nervous system. So when we talk about regaining leg strength in a matter of hours, we're not just saying the muscle is more energized. We're saying that the most powerful, most essential fibers for movement, the type 2 fast twitch fibers, are reawakened, and they're being reawakened because nitric oxide is improving their blood supply, fueling their mitochondria, and supercharging the signals they receive from your brain. This is where real functional strength comes from, and it can be switched on faster than most people realize. Let's move deeper into what's happening at the cellular level, specifically inside your muscle cells when you eat beets. Because beyond blood flow and neural signaling, there's another layer that determines whether your legs feel weak or powerful, fatigued or energized. It comes down to mitochondria. These are the power plants of your cells. They take in oxygen and nutrients and convert them into ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the actual energy currency your muscles use to control. And beets play a direct role in improving the efficiency of this system. Beets are rich in dietary nitrates, and when those nitrates are converted to nitric oxide in the body, one of their most profound effects is on mitochondrial function. Nitric oxide actually enhances the efficiency of the electron transport chain inside the mitochondria. What that means functionally is that for every molecule of oxygen your body consumes, it's able to generate more. In real terms, this makes your muscles feel stronger, more responsive, and significantly less fatigued, even during repeated effort. This is a critical concept because when we talk about muscle performance, we're not just talking about size or strength. We're talking about how efficiently your cells can produce usable energy. If your mitochondria are underperforming, your muscles will feel heavy, slow, and easily exhausted. But when mitochondria efficiency increases, everything changes. Movements that felt difficult start to feel lighter. Stability improves, endurance increases. And all of that can happen within hours of beet ingestion because the nitric oxide boost kicks in quickly and affects mitochondrial activity almost immediately. Studies using muscle biopsies and magnetic resonance spectroscopy have shown that nitrate-rich foods like beets improve the phosphate to oxygen ratio in mitochondria, a key marker of energy efficiency. The implication is simple but powerful. Your muscles are using less oxygen to produce the same or even greater amounts of force. That means less fatigue and better performance, particularly in high-demand muscles like those in your legs. Now consider this in the context of fast twitch fibers, which we talked about earlier. These fibers rely more heavily on rapid ATP turnover. They don't just need energy, they need it fast and in large quantities. Improved mitochondrial efficiency means these fibers are ready when you need them, whether it's pushing out of a chair, powering up a flight of stairs, or regaining balance after a misstep. The energy system behind that action is primed and ready to go, thanks in part to nitric oxide's influence on mitochondrial output. This is especially important for individuals experiencing age muscle fatigue or weakness. One of the earliest signs of mitochondrial decline is a drop in endurance and recovery. By improving mitochondrial performance through something as simple as beet consumption, you're restoring the most fundamental level of muscular energy production. You're not just feeding the muscle, you're upgrading the machinery that powers it. So when we say beets improve muscle performance, we're not being metaphorical. At the molecular level, they increase ATP output, reduce energy waste, and give your leg muscles the capacity to contract harder, faster, and longer. It's one of the cleanest, most biologically supported ways to reignite power in the lower body, starting from the inside out. Let's take a closer look at one mineral in beets that often flies under the radar, but plays an absolutely essential role in muscle strength, coordination, and rapid recovery. And that's potassium. Now, when most people think about nutrients for muscle function, they focus on protein or maybe magnesium. But potassium is a non-negotiable element for neuromuscular performance. It governs the electrical signals that allow your muscles to contract, your nerves to fire, and your brain to communicate with your limbs in real time. And beets, by nature, are incredibly rich in potassium. To understand how this works, let's first zoom in on how muscles contract. Every time you move, whether you're walking, standing, or trying to stabilize yourself, your brain sends a signal down a motor neuron. That signal arrives at a muscle fiber and initiates a wave of electrical activity. This is what triggers the contraction, and none of that can happen without the precise movement of charged particles, especially potassium ions, across the muscle cell membranes. Potassium works in tandem with sodium to create what's known as the action potential. Think of it like an on-off switch. When the right amount of potassium is present inside and outside the muscle cell, the switch flips cleanly. The muscle receives the signal and contracts effectively. But when potassium levels are low or imbalanced, that electrical signal weakens. Muscle contractions become slower, weaker, or uncoordinated. This leads to fatigue, cramping, and even instability during movement, especially in the lower limbs. Beets deliver a highly bioavailable form of potassium that enters the bloodstream quickly after digestion. This mineral supports what's called resting membrane potential, basically the readiness state of your muscle cells to fire when needed. When potassium levels are optimal, your muscles are not just stronger, they're more responsive and more precise. That means quicker reaction times, smoother gait, better balance, and reduced risk of injury. And here's where this becomes especially relevant for restoring leg strength. The legs contain a high volume of motor units, groups of muscle fibers innervated by single motor neurons. These motor units rely on synchronized firing for powerful coordinated movement. Potassium helps stabilize that electrical environment. It ensures that the signal doesn't stutter or misfire. That's critical for fast twitch muscle activation, which we depend on for getting up from a seated position, reacting to uneven ground, or initiating sudden bursts of movement. It's also important to consider that potassium loss is common. Stress, sweating, dehydration, certain medications, and even low-carb diets can deplete potassium stores. When that happens, muscle performance drops, sometimes without people realizing why. Beets offer a natural, nutrient-dense way to replenish those stores and restore full neuromuscular function. So when you eat beets, you're not just improving circulation or boosting energy production. You're also recharging the electrical system that governs every single muscle contraction in your legs. You're enabling faster, cleaner, more forceful movements because your cells are electrically tuned and ready to perform. Potassium is the key conductor in that system. And beets uniquely deliver it in a form that your body can use quickly and effectively. Let's now focus on something that's often overlooked when we talk about muscle strength, the connection between your brain and your muscles. what's called neuromuscular signaling, because your legs aren't just about muscle fibers contracting, they're about coordination, balance, timing, and the constant feedback loop between your central nervous system and your peripheral muscles. And one of the most powerful ways to enhance that communication is through increased blood flow. This is exactly what happens when you consume beets. Beets, as we've covered, are rich in dietary nitrates. These nitrates convert into nitric oxide in the body, and nitric oxide acts as a vasodilator, widening the blood vessels, improving circulation, and delivering more oxygen and nutrients throughout the body. But here's the key point. This doesn't just affect muscle performance at the tissue level. It also upgrades the performance of the nervous system. The increased blood flow reaches the brain, spinal cord, and the motor neurons that send signals to the muscles. This results in a faster, more efficient brain-to-muscle connection. Every voluntary movement, especially those that require speed or balance, begins with a command from the brain. That signal travels through the spinal cord, out through the motor neurons, and ends at a neuromuscular junction. This is where the signal tells a specific muscle fiber to contract. The speed and clarity of that signal determine how well you move. Better blood flow enhances that entire pathway. It increases oxygen delivery to brain regions involved in motor planning and control. It reduces neural fatigue, and it ensures that the peripheral nerves, those that extend into the legs, remain highly responsive. This is especially critical for coordination and balance. Think about actions like catching yourself mid-step, adjusting your foot placement when walking on uneven ground, or shifting weight quickly. These rely on a feedback loop between sensors in the skin, joints, and muscles and processing centers in the brain. That information has to travel quickly and clearly in both directions. When blood flow is optimized, that loop tightens, your body can respond in real time. Stability improves, coordination sharpens, and even micro adjustments like correcting ankle position during a step become more precise. There's also a strong cognitive component here. Studies show that increased cerebral blood flow, especially in the motor cortex and cerebellum, enhances proprioception, the sense of where your body is in space. That's foundational to balance. When you eat beets and nitric oxide levels rise, you're essentially fine-tuning your internal GPS system. Your brain is more aware of your body's position. Your muscles are better at executing the corrections needed to stay upright and stable. This is why beet consumption doesn't just result in stronger legs, it results in more intelligent legs. Movements become more coordinated, falls become less likely, and the nervous system becomes more aligned with the muscular system. Increased blood flow acts like a lubricant for that entire communication network, from neurons in the brain all the way down to the smallest fibers in your calves. And that upgrade starts within hours of consuming this one nutrient-rich food. Now let's talk about the timeline, because one of the most compelling aspects of beet consumption for leg strength isn't just that it works, but how fast it works. We're not talking about something that takes weeks to show benefits. Clinical data has shown measurable improvements in muscle strength, endurance, and coordination within just 6 to 12 hours after consuming beets. That kind of rapid physiological response is rare in nutrition science, and it's worth breaking down why it happens. Beets are uniquely high in dietary nitrates, and when you ingest them, those nitrates begin a very fast chain reaction in the body. Within about 30 to 60 minutes, the nitrate is absorbed, circulated, and converted via oral bacteria and systemic pathways into nitric oxide. This molecule doesn't sit around waiting. It gets to work almost immediately, acting on the walls of your blood vessels, expanding them and allowing for enhanced delivery of oxygen, glucose, electrolytes, and signaling molecules to your muscle tissue. This isn't just theory. Controlled studies using hand grip dynamometers, leg press machines, and EMG, electromyography, readings have confirmed that muscle output, measured as both force and endurance, increases within hours of nitrate-rich beet consumption. What this means is that you can see and feel the effect the same day. Participants have shown improvements in maximal voluntary contraction, a key marker of muscle strength. In other words, they were literally stronger just hours after eating beets compared to their baseline. But the strength gain isn't just muscular, it's neuromuscular. That's the key distinction. The enhanced blood flow from nitric oxide improves signal clarity between the brain and muscle fibers. This leads to better recruitment of type 2 fast twitch fibers, which are essential for generating explosive power in the legs. When those fibers activate more effectively, force output increases even without any additional training or movement. That's what makes this so profound. It's not a placebo, and it's not dependent on long-term adaptation. It's a real, measurable performance enhancement that shows up in the very short term. There's also an improvement in fatigue resistance. In clinical trials, subjects performing endurance or repeated contraction protocols after consuming beet juice were able to sustain effort for significantly longer than controls. This is largely due to enhanced mitochondrial efficiency, again, something that happens rapidly once nitric oxide levels rise. More ATP is produced per unit of oxygen consumed. That means your leg muscles don't tire as quickly even when placed under strain. And this response is consistent across populations. It's been observed in athletes, older adults, and sedentary individuals alike. Whether you're trying to get back lost mobility or simply power through a demanding day, the research shows that the physiological response to beet nitrates kicks in fast and reliably. So when we say you can regain leg strength in just 6 to 12 hours by eating this one food, we're not speaking in metaphors. The clinical evidence is clear. Beets rapidly activate biological systems that improve force production, neuromuscular communication, and endurance. And that impact can be felt the very same day. So when we put it all together, what we're really looking at is a simple, natural intervention with a profound physiological impact. Beets, through their high nitrate content, trigger a cascade of changes in the body that enhance blood flow, fuel the mitochondria, activate fast twitch muscle fibers, optimize potassium levels for muscle contraction, and strengthen the neural pathways between brain and muscle. All of this combines to produce noticeable gains in leg strength, stability, and coordination, and it can happen in as little as 6 to 12 hours. This isn't about hacks or hype. It's about leveraging hard science to restore one of the most essential components of human function: strong, responsive legs. Whether you're trying to get back mobility, improve performance, or simply feel more powerful in your movements, this is a tool grounded in biology and validated by research. One food, one day, real results.